felt comfortable in the chaos. When I got back into the States is where it felt not as comfortable.
One thing I couldn't find about you was the nickname Trailer. Where did that come from?
I got from a childhood spent on the wrong side of the tracks.
You talk about your rough upbringing, those neighborhoods and that. Some of those areas are pretty rough.
I remember being a kid fighting grown adults, 13, 14 years old.
What drew you to Special Forces in the first place?
We initially went to Iraq, but we was attached to an SF team, and those guys were getting after it. And I'm like, that's what I want to do.
You've taken a lot of lumps throughout life, a loss to your son. How has that changed what you're doing for others?
Whenever Jacob passed away, your perspective on what success looks like starts changing. You realize you don't have the time with your loved ones that you think that you have. I hit rock bottom and I rebuilt myself. I coach high achieving men because I think a lot of people, they push the grind and they miss this huge important portion of why they're doing it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diehard Entrepreneur Stories. I am your host, Devin Ramos, and today do I have a guest for you. Terry Wilson is the founder of Tactical Edge Coaching and Consulting. He is a 24-year veteran, most of his time spent in Special Forces. He was a Special Forces Sergeant Major and held many other titles. Today, we talk about leadership. Today's episode is a little bit different than what you've heard up to this point, in that we don't go too much into business. We stay in the leadership realm, but man, is it impactful. Terry drops countless nuggets, and a few times I stopped selfishly so I could take some notes. He shared so many valuable insights, and he also has a really amazing story. Like many entrepreneurs, he started out with a rough upbringing, had some life events that just completely changed the trajectory of his life, but he's come out on the other side resilient, and he's here to share it all with you. So without further ado, let's welcome Terry. Terry, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I'm glad to be here. So.
Me too, man. Hey, so one thing I couldn't find about you was the nickname Trailer. Where did that come from?
So that got from a childhood spent on the wrong side of the tracks. So
okay.
So whenever, like in the military, you join the military, and then like you're telling like your war, your childhood stories and everything else. I was telling stories like that. And then I had a little bit different background than a lot of the guys. So one of the guys on my team, they started calling me Trailer. So I just owned it, just kept it. So yeah,
and it's stuck. I love it.
Yeah, it's stuck. Yeah. So like a lot of people that don't even know me, that I don't even know, was calling me that for a long time. Hey, Trailer, what's up? So I just just kept it. So.
That's so cool. And I know, man, like some nicknames like that, man, they stick. And when they stick, like, dude, that is everybody, like all down the hallway, like everybody.
So like, and the thing about it too, man, it's like one of those things for me. It's like, it's never forget where you come from. No matter where you're at now, it's like, hey, listen, like, you did without once. It's good to have things, be grateful where you're at, and where you came from and dealing with that kind of stuff. So that's why I always keep it, and I put it in my name also. So.
No, that's good. I can appreciate that for sure. I know you're from St. Louis. Did you grow up? You spent your whole childhood there?
Pretty much like in that general area, like St. Louis, St. Charles, Winfield, Warrenton, out in the country area there also. So like all around St. Louis, St. Charles counties. Okay.
So when you talk about your rough upbringing, was part of that like those neighborhoods in that area? Because I know I've been over there, and I know some of those areas are pretty rough.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of it has to be, I think it's a Midwest culture kind of thing, like the blue collar kind of like, blue collar, but lower income. Like that's kind of the way that you were kind of brought up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember being a kid, fighting grown adults, at 13, 14 years old. You know what I mean? Like, it was a culture. It was just the way of life. You know what I mean? So like, that was it. So.
Yeah, for sure. I notice, I don't know about you, but I noticed a lot of, it was a lot of guys on my team initially. And then I noticed it in, just throughout, fifth group. And then I started noticing it when I started, working with, SEALs and other, soft personnel. But it seems like a lot of times, a good portion of us are like rough around the edges, we're kind of wild. I almost wonder if that's why we are where we are. Like we don't know any difference. I remember one time talking to some friends about chaos, and I was like, guys, like I don't really know anything else, and like I'm very comfortable in chaos. Like, and don't get me wrong, I don't seek it, but like I'm just like very comfortable there.
So I think a lot of times there too is whenever you've kind of grown up around chaos too, like in certain areas of your life, like that's what I was talking about. Like I was an adrenaline junkie, right? So it was like always pushing the limit, right? So like when you're always pushing the limits and you don't have good like SOPs or like battle rhythms, you're going to have chaos, right? Or if there's chaos there, once you start learning how to control the chaos, right? That's kind of where the perfection comes into where it's like, but it's comfortable, right? That's why most people don't understand, especially like in high stressful situations and combat, there's a lot of things going on. Like I felt comfortable in the chaos. When I got back into the States is where it felt not as comfortable, and I think a lot of guys that kind of go towards that soft realm is pushing through, they're pushing themselves. How do you control the uncontrollable? Right. So like you figure out a way to do that, as much as you possibly can, and I think that's, in the entrepreneur realm, that's why I think a lot of guys there, that's the perfect because it's problem solving at its best, right? It's controlled chaos, right? The more chaos you have, you figure out what kind of SOPs and solutions and things I can put in there to control that, right? So I can scale and everything else. And every level of entrepreneurship, as you're scaling, becomes more chaos. Then you come up with systems to control that, right? And then as you're going up, you're just continually solving problems and putting in systems and processes to control the chaos.
Yeah.
Pretty much, really, truthfully.
Yeah, no, that totally resonates with me. Absolutely. And I think in hindsight here, that's why I love it so much too. Cause to your point, we do foster a culture and when you're, learning from others that come before you, that's, hey, control the controllables, like control what you can, worry about what you can, let go of everything else and keep moving forward. And, like you said, it results in this environment that is chaotic, but is somewhat controlled. It's not just like a tornado and stuff is flipping everywhere, so yeah, man, that's cool. That's interesting. I love that. I love that insight. So what drew you to Special Forces in the first place?
So when I joined the military, when I was September 11th hit, right? And I went over to Iraq, like right after it hit. So I was kind of like right behind the front lines, right? So didn't see a whole lot when we initially went to Iraq, but we was attached to an SF team. And those guys were getting after it. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Right. So like as soon as I got back from that deployment, I started preparing and signed up for selection. And then that's why I'm just like, because those guys were like play by their own set of rules, and they were getting after it. Us was as much, so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. What would you say in hindsight, for the job specifically, right? Like whether it was when you were a Bravo or 18 Bravo or 18 Zulu or what have you, what about the job in hindsight do you think you enjoyed most?
Oh man. So I think a lot of people think like being a Green Beret or being in SOF, like specifically, it is like, obviously it's physical, right? But the human domain working by, with, and through people is like, you can apply that to any and every it doesn't matter, entrepreneur, relationship. Like, people don't understand the power of networking and the 10x you get off of that. They look at numbers, but people are something that a lot of people, they can't quantify the relationship and the networking they get off of it, right? Now, if they invest in the S&P 500 or they invest in this company or they leverage X, Y, and Z, they can see the rewards off of it, right? I'm telling you, if you are genuine and you apply that to working with people, the returns are way more than what you could ever invest in the S&P 500.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that so much. I think one of the cool things that I noticed, comparing like team life to entrepreneurship, I don't know if you can say the same, but on a team, you hear all the time, like, just be the guy that shows up, volunteers for everything, like is a solid dude, solid teammate. Like, just be that guy. Right. And then parallel that with entrepreneurship and leadership, I hear constantly and these are leaders I look up to. Okay. Saying like, hey man, focus on how you can serve your people. Like, the rest will come and you're going to enjoy it. Right. And so now I look back in hindsight and, I think of my favorite dude. I loved all the dudes on our team. But my favorite dude, I actually really didn't like him at first. He was the most valuable guy because he was always there for everybody else. That dude was always there to serve everybody and was like just seemingly so selfless. And he didn't like put himself on a pedestal. He was just that guy that was always there doing stuff for everybody. And now as an entrepreneur, I'm like, that's value, dude. He was the most valuable dude because of that, And man, so now I try to look through that lens, as an entrepreneur and as a leader. But I thought that was fascinating. And it is what it is. But I'm like, man, if only I could have had that perspective when I was on a team, it'd have been better for everybody.
Yeah, it's difficult, even on those spaces there, whether you're on a team or whether you're doing an entrepreneurship or like you're doing a business, because you're looking for something that's quantifiable.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're on a team, the things that quantify success for you could be, did I get promoted? Am I getting this school? Am I getting this? Am I getting this? Am I performing this way or whatever? Well, those are all self-serving. Same thing in business, right? If I go, okay, what am I doing? If I quantify, okay, what was my ROI? Like, you know what I mean? What was my ROS? Like, what all these things that I'm looking at? Like, okay, how much did I make this much? What was my overhead? All this stuff. It's not things that you don't quantify, you don't track. But when you put those first, besides putting the customer or putting the team or putting your peers and everything else, and you're doing it for service, those other things come. You're good. Man, I'm telling you, when I was a team partner or whatever, I was not a gatekeeper. And if I could help someone else, and you're competing with all these people, even as a sergeant major, you're competing with all these people. If you come in, hey, listen, I will tell you everything that you want to know from me. I have no problem sharing it with you, right? Now, if I'm telling you this and you get better, then that's going to inherently make me better because now I got to keep up with you.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Or if you get better than me and I teach 2 or 3 other people to get better and they're better than me, people that are smart in leadership positions say, Terry's the guy I want to promote because he's made 4 or 5 people just as good or better than he is, not just himself. People don't think that way because they're like, oh, I got to guard this, right? But that's your job as a Green Beret, is be a force multiplier. Now, if you help somebody out and they don't want to listen to you and they don't take it, then hey, it's on you. You know what I mean? I'm here. I got it. It's for you. Take it or not. You do the same thing with your, in a business, and you're trying to solve a problem for a client, and you're focusing on solving the problem, the money will come. You know what I mean? But like, if you're just focusing on getting the money and then worried about the bottom dollar all the time, and then just like, oh, how can I skim off of this? How can I skim off of that? Then, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't feel like you can run as a fulfilling and effective company that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You're living, essentially in scarcity. You're making decisions from a perspective of like, just got to get through, and it's not really serving anybody.
Abundance mindset and being willing to and don't get me wrong, are you now, when you get into the civilian sector, there is some dot your I's, cross your T's kind of thing, because if not, there's some sharks out there that will totally take advantage of it. You know what I mean? So you got to be smart about things. So I'm not saying I'm not giving away the farm to somebody, right? There's contracts and all that stuff you kind of got to work through and that stuff, right? The handshake deals, really, I'll shake your hand on it, but it's going to be backed up with paper, because I believe in my word, right? But it doesn't necessarily, mean that we're all going to both be doing the same thing. And there's sometimes too, is even on that, is there's some miscommunication, right? It doesn't have to do with, you could be a man of your word, I can be a man of my word. We shake hands, but there's a communication issue. You think you're supposed to receive this. I think you're supposed to receive that. There is nothing in paper, and now there's a conflict, right? So if it's on paper, there's no question, right? Hey, listen, you were supposed to get this. I was supposed to get this. This happened or it didn't happen. All right, whatever the case is. So,
absolutely. You had said, as Green Berets were force multipliers, and you talked about, by, with, and through. I think that's so cool, especially since when I first got out and I was figuring out what really fulfills me, what am I enjoying the most. It always was focused on leadership and developing others. And I thought it was kind of odd because there wasn't a ton of that for me, right? Because I got out is an E7, and I was alpha cell leader, right? And so I didn't have what I thought was a ton of leadership experience leading other people. It just looked different, right? But that was the lens I had looked at it through during that time. And then I realized, I'm like, man, this is it's how God made me, first off, but it's also what I've lived the last 13 years of my life. Whether it's developing a partner force, or it's developing as an echo, the 25 series, or whatever. And there's just something fulfilling about doing something through other people. You can do it yourself. You can always do it yourself. We can always go unilateral. But when you go and you do it through other people, at least for me, man, there's something so fulfilling about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's a lot of times there too. A lot of people set themselves short when they're talking about it doesn't matter whether it's leadership or whatever. A E5 in the military has more leadership experience than 99% of the population. So the reality of it is that person coming up here and talking about leadership, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? But they think, oh, because, I wasn't a sergeant major, or I wasn't a colonel, or I wasn't a first sergeant, or I wasn't this, then I can't speak on it. No, because you're speaking on it to 90 some plus percentage of the population. There's never been in any leadership position at all, and have no clue how you're dealing with problems, right? And the military forces you to deal with leadership way different, right? In the civilian sector, if a guy does something wrong, oh, that guy did something wrong. In the military sector, if your guy does something wrong, you're the jackass. And you're like, hey, that guy got a DUI. I can't force his hand whether he drinks or not. What do you want me to do? You know what I mean? You're you're yelling at me. This guy is an idiot. That doesn't happen in the civilian sector, right? So you have to build cultures in an organization, and there's some truth to it too, right? So if if I'm the type of leader who looks the other way on certain things and then it happens, well, that's part of the reason why it happened, right? Or are you the leader, like, if you bring the guys in and be like, hey, what are you doing? You can't do that shit, right?
Yeah.
Or like, whatever it is, you're using zero trade craft. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever that. So like, that's the reason why, in the military, it's a big thing. Some leadership doesn't understand that. It doesn't matter what happens, it's your responsibility. So whole different type of leadership challenges the civilian world doesn't have to deal with.
Absolutely. Do you struggle with that within the, I want to say civilian sector, but now that you're out of the military, right? And you're leading the company and leading people that, maybe some of them were in the military, maybe some of them weren't. You got a mix, maybe. Do you struggle with that? Because you hit the nail on the head, and you're the third person that's like, you got some real experience in the military to say that. Like, you're absolutely right. In the military, it's like, yeah, dude, figure it out. Like, yeah, dude, figure it out. I love how people think that just because we're SF, I mean, even in SMUs, like, oh no, you can just fire somebody like that. It's like, well, yeah, there's certain things, but like, you're going to get pushed to develop that person and not give up on them. Like, you are going to get pushed. So do you have any struggles maybe going too far with that in the, in what you're doing now?
So it depends. So I treat each individual a little bit. I try to give them what they need to get them to be successful and reach their goals. Right. Some people need some different things. Some people need that tough love, the boot in the ass. Like, hey, listen, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? And I think when you're genuine and when people know that it's for the right reasons, they're receptive to it versus like yelling at somebody because because I was an instructor and I seen the instructors who just yelled because they have their own problems. And you're like, you are a douchebag. Like, you're not a good person. Right. And you see that side of things too. Right. But you also see the side that where this person needs yelled at. Like, this person needs to be like, hey, what are you doing? Stop. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And be very direct, very blunt to get them to move forward. Not everybody is going to be successful with that type of leadership style. So to me, a good leader is for me figuring out what I need to do to get you to move forward. If you're the axe all the time, you're only going to be able to help a certain amount of people. You got to know when to be the axe, when to be the scalpel, when to do, pull out the tools from your kit bag that's going to help them get where they need to be. So I think if you can mesh some of that, now obviously you're going to have a leadership style that is like very comfortable to you, but that's what the wisdom comes in and be like, okay, how do I build a culture here around this to get people to move forward on their own? And that's where like one thing like in SF, and even in the civilian side, like the counseling where people knows where they stand is very, very important, right? Because what happens is if I'm your boss, right, and you work for me, and I say this is my standard and this is what success looks like, right? But then I reward something else. That standard is no longer the standard in what I say success looks like. I rewarded this, right? So now you just change the culture of that organization of what you said the standard is because you promoted this person and that person lives nothing by the embodiment of what you say the standard is, right? Right. So there's a reason to have these standards in the organization. This is my mission statement. This is this is the, for your organization, right? But it's also important to abide by that as a company, a leader, so everybody knows that's what it is. And it's also important to have counseling so you sit down with people and let them know, hey, this is where you're at, 100% honest, right? And this is what success looks like for me. If you want to do here, this is a path forward for you to get there. Right now, you're not on that path because 3 days a week, you're 15 minutes late. Like, you leave, whatever the problem is with that person, or you are, hey, you're crushing it in this, but these are areas that I really need you to help focus on, because this is what's going to help the company or the organization or whatever. Or you're not a team player or whatever it is, right? So, and that's going to build your organization, because they say, okay, well, if I want to get here, this is what I need to do. You know what I mean? So
I love that. I hear a lot of people say, like, oh, I'm a direct leader. I'm a direct leader. I used to say that too. But what I found, and I found this because I was doing it initially, and then I started watching other leaders around me. A lot of times I would get that mixed up, like being direct with like telling people, saying things however you see fit, like no discretion, right? And what I ended up doing was, like, instead of shooting people straight, I would kind of like sugarcoat things because I didn't want to piss them off. And then I'd hit the point that I would sort of explode, and I just say how it was, however I wanted. And I just be like, oh, I'm being direct. And what I realized over time is exactly what you just explained here. Like, sitting that person down before stuff hits the fan and shooting them straight. Like, here's where you're at. Here's where you want to get to right now. What's holding you back from getting to where you want to go is, and going through it. You're always 15 minutes late. Like, everybody else is on time. We need you to be on time. Blah, 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 blah. And going through it in that sense. I love that, because I feel like there's far too many leaders, even in business. This was huge in the military. It's a epidemic, but in the business world, I see the same thing, where people are just like, oh, like, they don't want to piss anybody off, but then they explode, and there's just like no communication. There's a huge disconnect. And it's like, man, how are you supposed to, if you don't know where you stand with somebody, how are you supposed to, where's your feedback? Like, am I right? Am I wrong? Like,
So I don't understand why, like, companies don't hire people out to do this, teach them how to do this from the military standpoint, because it's terrible and it destroys the organization, because they're unable to be effective, because everybody's like this nice fake, like, concerned about HR so much, they never get anything done. I don't know where this is coming from, right? Like, why is it so hard to have a standard and hold people up to a standard, right? And then and it should be part of your culture in your organization. Hey, this is what the standard is. You come into work, this is what it is. All right. Now, as you're getting your reports, hey, you're not doing these things. Where you are, if you want to get to this, and find out where they want to be. Because if not, what happens is people, employees get bitter, they get upset, they're going to see somebody else get promoted, and they're going to wonder why they're not getting promoted, or like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And majority of that time is there's no self-realization of when they're wrong, right? Even if I work for somebody and I don't agree with them, if he's going to set out what success looks like for him, even if I don't agree that that's success, at least I know what the boundaries are and I can work towards, right? Okay, this guy says I need to sell 10x what I'm selling now to get promoted. I'm like, okay, well, if I do that, then I'm going to cut off, maybe a business partner, whatever, which I don't necessarily agree with, but this is what I need to do to get there. At least I know what the boundaries are. If I don't get there, then that's what it is, right? But there's no straightforward, with that there too, so it can be frustrating when you're talking about like your leadership tactics. It's important to know what you naturally like go to, but you have to be able to meet people where they're at. If you want them to live within the culture of your organization, right? And to fit into where you're at, right? One thing that I do, I've done this for years and it works perfect for me, is so if somebody did something that was outside of the norm or I had an issue with, right? Kind of what you were talking about before, like you go direct with them or you'd sugarcoat it. I go, Devin, why did you do that? And they'll explain it to me. I go, why is your end state? What was your thought process on it? And they'll tell me their thought process. Then you start going, oh, you know what? Our SOP isn't good because you didn't understand it. my communication to you wasn't effective because you didn't understand what I was saying, or they're way off the mark. And now you go, no, that we did this I need to retrain you or whatever. Or you find out maybe just being lazy, right? But then you learn that. And now you learn whenever, okay, this is what I need to fix. And maybe you need an ass chewing, or maybe you be like, sometimes you'd be surprised, be like, I didn't think of it that way. There's another issue you have, right? The way you went about it is not right, but the thought process you had was correct. You know what I mean? So I'm missing that portion of it. So
yeah, that's so good, man. I can't distinctly say this about the military, but since I've been out within the business world, I will say there's been nothing like a true A player showing me how wrong I am. Man, I'll tell you, like, I didn't realize how many miscommunications that I had caused exist and actually turn into problems. Things break down and they turn into problems versus people just like not being motivated or not wanting to do the right thing or not being the right fit or like whatever they're categorized as. And I don't say that as like a blanket statement, but when I really started getting like, what people think of when you say A players, what I mean is people that that their culture fit, their core values match, and they're highly professional. Like that's categorizing to me A players. Like, and when I had them around me, it took once, twice I was wrong. And then I started slowing down and doing a little more fact finding up front, similar to what you were saying. And then just like you said, it started exposing to me. I'm like, oh yeah, that process sucks. Or it's like, oh, I said it in this way and I can see how you took it that way. That is very confusing. It sounds clear to me, but you're saying it back to me and I can see how that's really confusing. Or maybe I was just, bad information. Right. And, man, that right there humbled me. And so it just changed the way I viewed things is a leader, having done that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. I love it. What are some other things that have worked for you? You talked about approaching and communicating with everybody, like meeting them where they're at, so to speak, right? Like you got some that, like you said, there's a time you put a boot in the ass, and then others you got to appeal to them different. What are some things that you found that have really worked for you that you find yourself like going back to?
I always go back to letting people know where I stand and what success looks like in an organization or as a team, right? If you're leading that team in that organization, right? Then from there, I always get buy-in from the team or the organization, right? So even for example, as a team sergeant, I was very into being physically fit. Right. So instead of me just putting a whole bunch of standards on the ODA, I asked the guys, hey, what do you think a team guy should be able to do? Guys are like, I think you should be able to run 5 minutes and 5 miles in 40 minutes. Guys should be able to do X, Y, and Z. Hey, we were a WIC team. So, we need to be able to tread water for this amount of time more. We need to be able to do X, blah, blah, blah. And we're sitting here just having a conversation like that. And I go to my warrant. I'm like, hey, write it down. And I have to look and I'm like, you just made the team SOP. That's the standard for the ODA now. And the guys are like, oh, shit. You can't argue with me. It's not a dictatorship, right? Because in the day, I went up there, we asked some questions, everybody agreed with it, nobody said anything different. Now that's what it is. Now we got to figure out a way to execute it and train to those standards. Same way I did with combat operations. I didn't care where we went. Like I made sure we did a condensed version of the military decision-making process, which is planning for everybody out here, just your just operations. And I give very clear guidance on, hey, what it should look like, or at least left and right limits, or what we had resources and access to. And then I would let the team, even if it was only 30 minutes, like I'd let the team come up with a plan. And then from there, we may have to do some changes to it or whatever. But then, because then at the end of the day, there's none of this. When things go wrong, they are just as much as part of the planning process as you are, right? And then when things go wrong or things go right, they're bought into the mission. And what people don't understand in combat operations, I've seen it in the past where you have guys on an ODA bitching, moaning, complaining that we're doing this operation. And that does not, you cannot have that when you're out there being shot at and people are trying to kill you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it happens way more than people think because they're not part of the process. And some people, before we went on our trips to Afghanistan as a team sergeant, I let everybody on my team know. I go, hey, listen, I said, I like to get after it. I said, so I am not going to keep you out of harm's way. I promise you, we'll be technically and tactically sound. I am not going to risk anyone's life, but we are going to get after it. If this isn't the ODA for you, I'm 100% fine with it. You don't have to say it in front of everybody. Come behind closed doors. Let me know. We'll work something out where you go to another team and people don't know that it's like you not wanting to do this or whatever. You know what I mean? So people already know in their mind before we go, like we're going to get after it. You know what I mean? Like, so like, and that's how you got to prep guys. Cause then they know what to expect and you do that on anything. Right. So then guys know, okay, yes, this is something I can get behind or it's something I'm not, but you got to have a standard and let people know, because if not, people will expect one thing and you have something else in your mind. And if you're not communicating that, you're going to have problems. I mean, just think about like somebody like Elon Musk. If he wouldn't have said, hey, I want people to go work for Doge for free. If I get there and you're like, I'm not getting paid. I'm like, well, this is bullshit. Or like, he's like, I want you to work however many hours he wants you to work for. I can decide, no, I'm not down for that. But if you get there and you think that, you move your whole family there to work with this guy, and then he's like, hey, you got to work here for 80 hours a week. And you're like, nah, I'm not doing that. There's going to be some contention. But if a guy lets you know, and then a day, you're like, I can either get behind it or not.
Yeah. I love it, man. There's nothing like watching, leaders like you, or like you mentioned, Elon Musk, to show me how much I really do sugarcoat things. You kind of tell these stories and stuff. I'm like, man, I gotta keep getting better at that. And yeah, man, I love it. That's such good stuff. Thank you for that. So Terry, man, I think it was 2020, if I believe. You've taken a lot of lumps throughout life, but you had a really significant one with the loss of your son. How has that changed what you're doing for others for the better, and helped you as you've developed this mission?
Oh man, whenever that happened, like all the way up to that point, I would say, on the outside looking in, very successful, still made it sergeant major in SF, which is not easy thing to do, right? Just in the Army or in the military altogether. Really good, career. But, the first 20 years of my career, I was deployed or TDY almost 11 years. So I was gone away from my family almost 11 years, right? And a lot of that was self-sustained. Like a lot of that I volunteered for. So, and I went all in on the ODAs. Like when I was on a team, like that was it. I lived, breathed, and executed like team life. I love the warrior mentality and everything. But whenever Jacob passed away, your perspective on what success looks like starts changing. Right? Because you realize you don't have the time that you think, and you don't have the time with your loved ones that you think that you have, right? And you start realizing like all these things, these worldly things that you say, oh, this is what success looks like. That if you had 30 days to live, all these things that you're striving for would mean nothing, right? So it changes your perspective on what success looks like, right? Now, I'm not saying like don't go and push yourself and like try not to be a great entrepreneur and everything. But if you're doing that on the backs of like being a good father or being a good husband or like living to way fulfillment of your life, then what is the point, right? Because nobody ever on their deathbed says, I wish I would have made another $1 million, or I wish I would have made it the CEO of this company, or I wish I would have, X, Y, and Z, like all these things that we think like, oh, it sucks. I wish I would have bought that Porsche 911 or that Bugatti or the house on the hills. You don't give a shit about that. On your deathbed, you're concerned about a few things. Was I a good husband or a good spouse? Right? Was I a good father? Like, did I live a life? Did I like hide things? Or was I not who I was because I was worried about hurting somebody's feelings or like all this other crap that we do, those are the things you kind of like regret, and there's a lot of documentation on it, but people don't see it until it's too late. So for me, it really changed my perspective on what success looked like for me. And that's why I coach high achieving men, because I think a lot of people, they push the grind and they miss this huge important portion of why they're doing it. And they fall short on what success looks like. And they're never ever to fill a hole that's there because they're just pushing. And they're working to live. Like you're no different than the guy who's working 40, 60 hours a week, you know what I mean? Or 60 hours a week just to make ends meet, because you're working so much to make a whole bunch of money, but are never able to enjoy it. You know what I mean? With your family, then what's the point?
Yeah, man. Like you had said, there's a lot of documentation out there. And I know that people have studied this too. If I had to guess though, there's nothing that quite hits like losing a child like that, I'm sure you've had near death, or close encounters experiences. I have as well. But like even then, and that does change perspective. Like for sure, it has. Like I can only imagine. So you're saying that I hear you saying that from a place of experience.
Yeah, unfortunately that's where a lot of times what we as individuals have to see before we actually implement it into our lives. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that's kind of where the human like reality of things kind of come into place, because like in combat, like, yeah, I've had a lot of close calls. I've taken life. I've taken a lot of life, and it comes part of the job and you understand it. And even the guys that you serve with, it's almost like, I almost kind of look at it, to me, I took it almost like watching a mob movie. It's like, we both sign up for it, right? So you like learn to like, hey, I'm going to mourn for you, right? But the reality of it is we both signed up for this. So I can't get upset if somebody takes my life. If you lose your life, it's just part of what we signed up for to do, It's part of what I signed up to take life, right? So it's you see it all the time. It's something you deal with daily, and you put it in like this compartmentalization portion of it, like we do, and we just deal with it, right? But then whenever it happens like really close to home to you like that, it's like now you really have to look at it in a whole different perspective, because you're like, man, this hits home now. It's different, even though you deal with death all the time, So yeah, it was tough. It was like it was a downhill spiral. Like I was out of shape. Like I was bad, man. I was in a bad place.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. I wrote something here. I wrote it after something you said. It triggered something. But I said, if I only had 30 days left to live, what would be meaningful to me? And I think that's That's a good thought. I'm a thinker. I'm a huge thinker. That's a good thought for me to ponder. I was talking with a friend yesterday and he had brought up something that I'd done a while ago. He was talking about writing your own obituary, which I don't know how people feel about that. I would encourage people to do it, right? Take the time to write your own obituary because it gets you to think different. So my question to you, Terry, is like, as I'm thinking about that, what do you see that works, or what have you done through your experiences to help the men that you're working with think different?
So they have to be intentional with their time, right? So especially whenever you're trying to push the issue on things, right? A lot of times it's being intentional. So like for my grown adult children, like I put it on the calendar, like just like me putting this podcast in, I'm going to text my daughter and be like, hey, what are you doing yesterday? What are you doing on Thursday? Let's grab coffee, right? You put it on the calendar, you schedule it like a meeting, like you schedule anything else, because now it's intentional. You're going to spend time with them, talking, having conversations that a lot of times you don't get when you're just passing each other back and forth in the house, right? You can do the same thing with your children that are 5, 10, whatever age group. Even though they don't know, maybe we put it on the calendar or let them know, hey, listen, we're going to have a play date or daddy-daughter date or whatever during this time. Like, you have to be intentional. And sometimes a lot of times it's like, so me, my wife, and my daughter just a couple of days ago for her, she had an 8th grade dance or whatever. And I took her out to, we dressed up. I put on a suit, right? And she put on a dress just to go out there to go out to have dinner. I knew it was over the top, but she enjoyed it. Like, it was what you know what I mean? I know she'll remember that. Like, you do things like that. And that's being intentional with them, like show them that you care. And you know what I mean? You got to be intentional.
Yeah, so good. So many good thoughts there. You're absolutely right. I do it with my fitness routine. And sometimes we overlook some of these things. As you were saying that, I was like thinking, I try to talk with my dad and my mom every so often. I'm like thinking like, I should put that on my calendar. Like, cause I would probably talk to him a lot more, Terry, tell us about your SPEAR framework. How did that, emerge? Well, first off, like, what is it? And how did that, emerge?
So for me, I focus on a few things when I do my coaching and consulting, right? It's leadership, right? Leadership is huge. I think I coach men. So even if you're not in a leadership position at work, you're still a leader, and you should be a leader in your household, right? Leadership is huge for me. So that I just put it on the fundamental things that I really believe in, that I think that should be prioritized on being a complete man, right? Mental toughness, like your mindset, like you have to be able to, our minds are no more different than it's what we tell ourselves. It's what we hear. So some people need to be reprogrammed what they tell themselves and what they hear, right? Because if you're not living in an abundance mindset, if you're a half glass empty kind of person, if like you're talking negative towards you, you're going to put that out. Like, you have to figure. So that's a huge portion of what it is, right? Leadership, mental resilience, your mindset, physical fitness is, if you're a leader, you should be in a physically fit, right? You walk in a room somewhere, right? You want to be able to be physically fit. People look at you, treat you different on the outside aspect of it, but you're going to feel better, right? Your capability, your confidence will be better, and your discipline is better because you're doing difficult things that you can lead up to the rest of the things that you're doing, right? So to me, that fitness and nutrition is a huge portion of it. One thing we kind of talked about before that gets kind of misplaced a lot, but people don't understand, is the human domain, is relationships with people are huge, right? If you want to be successful in life, What's the saying? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Like that is 100% the case, right? And being like in SF, like that's what you did, man. For me, that's why I was successful in my career, because I worked by, with, and through people, and I was not afraid to make somebody just as good as I was or better. Like at that point, my legacy was guys that were on my team now are now first sergeant majors, PSMs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want you to be better than I am, right? Like, that's the whole point. That's striving to help this person be better than you are. And then for me, I'm a big faith person. So purpose is huge for me. So I put that in there because I want people to know where I stand, you know. And you have to, even if you're not, a Christian, or you're not a man of faith, or you have to have some kind of overall purpose to push you through like those hard days, right? Now, I do preach, or I do talk about this a lot, is finding out what your purpose is. And you can't identify. If you identify with something that can be taken away from you, you're setting yourself up for an identity crisis. Talk about purpose, right?
Yeah, let's dig into that. Man, I love where you're going with that. Let's dig into that more.
So your purpose cannot be to be a Green Beret, because you are not going to be a Green Beret forever, right? That's why, your purpose cannot be to be a CEO, because you're not going to be a CEO forever, right? That's why you see all these billionaires, or all these people that are like eventually get into something else that is bigger than themselves, whether that's philanthropy, whether that's in their faith or spirituality or something, or whatever that is, right? You have to have it. It's got to be bigger than you, because your purpose should never be able to be taken away from you. Now, that doesn't mean you don't want to be good at it. It doesn't mean that it can't be a goal, right? But if it can be taken from you, it should never be your purpose. Do you know what I mean? So because if you put that first, then you're setting yourself up for identity crisis.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I love that. It's so simple. It's like, yeah, when you think about it, like, oh, I want to be a billionaire. Oh, I want to be a CEO. Oh, I want to be a Green Beret. Oh, I want to be a Navy SEAL. Like all those things, like, no. And when you talk about, man, that, there's a cycle of shedding the identity, but like when you talk about getting lost, and having identity issues, like, man, you ain't lying. Like that's the one commonality. Every time that's happened to me, it's like, I went from this thing to this thing to this thing, and always searching for the next one, which was just another thing that could be taken away from me, until I started thinking about it differently. I love that, man.
You have to put your purpose in something that cannot be taken away from you. Because if you don't, then you're always going to be dealing with the identity crisis. It's like, you know what I mean? Doesn't mean you don't be good at it. Like, oh, I want to be a great father. I want to be a great husband. I want to be a really good, CEO. I want to be a good Green Beret. And those can be goals, and you put specific goals on how I do that. But your overall reason for existence is none of those. And that's hard for people to wrap their heads around.
Man, a lot of wisdom there on purpose. Did that come after your transition out of the military?
So that came after my transition out of the military, and I hit rock bottom. And after Jacob passed away, like I rebuilt myself. Like I was out of shape. I was probably 50. I was almost like 30% body fat percentage. I got fat. If you know what I mean? Like I was in a bad place, right? And then so I went back to what I knew before, right? And I went back to the gym, started eating, got into nutrition, started learning about that, eating healthy, got back into like stoicism that I, read a lot on. Started getting back into like reading a lot, and like, okay, well, my marriage is suffering, so let me try to work on that, right? So what I need to do for that. So reading on that, reading on how to be a better father. And I'm rebuilding myself up, because I'm like, the only way I'm going to be able to help get my family out of this is if I'm able to be the best version of myself, right? But for me, dealing with all the things that I dealt with, like I still had a lot of anger, right? A lot of trauma, that kind of stuff. And I couldn't get rid of it. And that's when I was just like, all right, my son's going to the gym with me and I'm starting to kind of get my physique back. Everything else should be, running on full cylinders, man. But like I couldn't get rid of the anger, right? And I'm like, hey, let's start going to church. And I started going to different churches and I'm like, nope, not that one. Nope, not this one. Like, you know what I mean? I had a very hard time with like religion. Still have a difficult time with it, right? And then, so from there, then we went in there and I went all in and like, I just went all in and I'm like, hey, if you can help me with this, I started getting in the word. I started reading scripture the same way I read Stoicism. And I'm like, all right, let me find out about this Jesus guy. Like I would look, I would look and talk about Marcus Aurelius, right? So I'm like, all right, let me go in here and let me figure this out, And then I really just dived into my faith, and it's helped me tremendously to find like that's where I'm like, all right, all these things that I'm chasing is not my purpose, if that makes sense, But it was tough. It's not easy. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I think it's uncanny, the similarities a lot of the people that I talk to on this podcast, a lot of us all have in common, man. You talk about the stoicism, like huge on it, and going from that to like, all right, like let me dive into my faith like I am this stuff, and then just seeing the fruits of that. Man, I love that. I love that so much. So what about, you touched on this. I'd love for you to talk about it a little bit more. But you're essentially saying, not to quote you directly, but as men, like by default, we are leaders. Like it doesn't matter. Like you're a man, you're a leader, your household, or, like whatever, however we can look at that. So how do you approach, leading men that are feeling that pressure of like wanting to become a better leader and come to you for that part of your coaching?
For like, you're talking about at home or like for just like in general?
Yeah, just like in general, like let's say like all domains of their life, right? They're like, hey, like I have some serious issues here. I feel like it's my leadership, right? And like, where do you go from there with them?
So from there, every individual is a little bit different. So it kind of really, I dive into kind of where they're at and what they're struggling with, right? Some common themes are like a couple things. First, if it's like at work, sometimes it's a little bit of both. It's the mindset and the leadership, right? It's negative self-talk to their self, which you have to fix, right? You're like, hey, you can't be talking negative to yourself. It's some imposter syndrome, right? Which becomes an issue, right? So you got to talk to them about that and you got to work them through the mindset issue of why they think they're an imposter. Because every time you level up on anything that you're doing, there's going to be a portion to where you're learning that, but you can't. Are you the best person for the job for the people that you're teaching or you're mentoring? That's what you need to think about, right? Not compare yourself to somebody else, right? I'm not going to compare myself to another speaker or another leader. What I'm going to do is lead the people that I need to lead, knowing that I'm ahead. I can give them value, right? If you kind of look at it that way, then you can kind of get past this, because a lot of people will look at themselves because they know somebody that's done a job or a position that's done very, very well, and they compare themselves to that person. And you're like, you're not them. You're the best person for this job right here with these 20 people. Do your job. Do you know what I mean? If you look at it that way, it's a little bit better to kind of maintain to it, and then kind of figure out what that looks like or whatever. At home, sometimes it's issues because there's conflicts in the house, right? So if there's conflict in the household and maybe the man feels like he's not leading, right? A lot of times what will happen is sometimes as men, we try to lead, and if they feel like you're not protecting them and you're being in a certain way and they're not in their feminine, total in their feminism, then they're going to go into their masculine side. And that's when you start having some conflict, right? So the biggest key I tell them is like, so do things for your wife that lead that you know that she would want to do. Something simple as, open the door for her, right? Be driving. Like when we go out, I drive, right? If I'm like, hey, listen, on Friday at 5:00, we're going to go out to dinner. I don't pick a place that I want to go. I pick a place that I know she's going to go. My whole goal is to get her in her feminine personnel. So even if you're married to a woman who's a CEO of a company or just like crushes it at work or somewhere, when she comes home, like she don't want to deal with that shit. Like, you know what I mean? One thing I used to make a big problem with, because I bought into this kind of bullshit that like your wife should bring you peace, right? How many times do you hear that on social media? I want a woman to bring me peace. All right. Who's the most logical thinker, a man or a woman?
Yeah.
Who's the most emotional?
Yeah.
So you want to have the woman who's emotional bring you peace? That makes zero sense at all. You're the man. You should be like that. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about it. And I'm sitting here trying to say, why aren't you giving me peace? Like, I'm having a rough day. You should give me peace. And I'm sitting here thinking like, I want the most emotional person to bring me peace. That's not even logical. Like, who the fuck said that on social media? And it just became a wildfire thing. Cause it just makes now like, that's dumb.
Yeah, I don't know, but nobody's ever said what you just said. And I'm like, dude, oh man. And you're speaking right to my heart. Cause yes, I am very logical. I suspect you are as well, So I'm just like, I guarantee you I never have that thought ever again. That's good, dude. I love it.
I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to stimulate the female viewers or whatever, but if I'm just sitting here and be like, I'm going to let like somebody who can't control or the person who has the most logical thinker, right? So if that should be you should be the one controlling the peace in your household, right? So when she's emotional, you can be the rock and be like, hey, no, it's okay or whatever, right? So you can control that.
Yeah, no. And yeah, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody or everybody's household or like whatever. Like, I'm not thinking that far. I'm worried about me. In my marriage, I am hands down the most logical person. My wife says it. She comes to me for logic. She says, you ground me. She says things like that. So I'm just thinking like, dude, I'm such an idiot. Why am I thinking like she needs to be the piece to the household when she's just not built that way? And we both agree to it. We both understand that. We both share that perspective. So you just did a major shift for me. So, yeah, dude, that's great.
Yeah. If you apply that and see how it works, I'll tell you it's a game changer. Now, at the same token, that doesn't mean that you want to be married to a woman who's a wreck and that is not peaceful. Like, at the end of the day, I want to be married to somebody. You want to be married to somebody who is a peaceful, joyful person, right? So I'm not saying that, but when you're thinking about what we do good as men and what they do good as women, right? Like there's things we do good, there's things they do good, right? So if I'm asking them to do something that I'm normally should be better at, and I wonder why there's chaos in the house, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, man, absolutely. That's so good. All right, Terry, what's like a moment or a story that you can share with us as you started doing this coaching that just like reaffirmed for you, like as you're coming up with your new purpose, right? That reaffirmed that purpose and you're like, yeah, I'm on the right track.
So for me, I like helping people succeed. I like helping people reach their goals. they can see the bigger picture in life. And I like helping good people. And when you do this, I get to decide kind of who I work with and who I don't work with. And with social media, you put out who you are, and then you tend to get people more that are aligned more with you. So then, what you put out is kind of what you get. Every once in a while, you're going to get somebody that doesn't necessarily align, and you decide, okay, hey, listen, usually they'll self-select out, but for the most part, it's about helping good people that you kind of align with to get them to where they want to be, man. So that, to me, it's like whenever I hear like stories of not just the physical stuff, but like, when they're like, hey, listen, I've rekindled my relationship with my wife, you know what I mean? Like my kids, I found my faith, like all these things that are like, that are a lot more harder to quantify when you're doing like a mentoring program is what's like really like, all right, hey, I'm on the right path, man, And then even people that like don't purchase your stuff, when you're speaking or whatever, and you're helping people out, to me, that's fulfilling for me. So I know like I'm on the right track,
Yeah, I hear that. Like, it's almost like every testimony you get just fuels the fire is what I imagine as you're saying that. I love that. All right, Terry. Well, now, as you've got things going and you've worked through figuring out that purpose and everything, you had mentioned, reframing success. So what do you got in store for the future, and what does success look like for you now?
Oh man, that's a great question. So success for me is like, I stay within my faith. I put God for first, right? That's really big for me. And then my success, like legacy right now, is kind of almost what we talked about, right? It's the next generation and leaving something for like my grandkids in that, right? My kids are doing great. And then just being intentional with them. And to me, that's really what success, I don't really overcomplicate like what success looks like. Do my kids still want to hang out with me? That's a plus, right? Like that's still good. Is my relationship with my wife still, my grown adult kids, right? They still come visit. They still come over for Christmas and that's great. Does my relationship with my wife, is that still fulfilled and we're communicating, whatever? Am I in the Word, and am I, my relationship with Christ where I want it to be and fulfilling that? And all of that, truthfully, to me, is like what success looks like in helping other people, right? Helping the community, serving other people. That's what I measure success with, and the fruits from that, like let them be kind of where they go. So that's where I look it up. If you start complicating it, like success is X, Y, and Z. Once I get that Porsche 911, I'm going to be successful. Then it's never going to be there. Now, eventually, I want to buy a Porsche 911, but that doesn't mean success. You know what I mean? Like, it's fun to drive or whatever, but like, it's not. You can't hold that as like, oh, I've made it or whatever. So.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think this is obviously a whole nother segment here. But one thing I realized is there's this trap that I eventually learned to avoid at some point, where I found the purpose, and it was always in the journey, and like for now it's in the journey of what I'm doing. And so like that is different than it was before. Whereas, before it was, you just move it. It's like, I want to make $1,000. Okay. You make 1,000. And it's like, well, I want to make 100,000. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like for sure. Like I think people that like to win, I love to win. I'm always going to do that, but I'm not, the pursuit of that is what I'm enjoying along the way. It's not the thing that I'm looking towards that is making everything worth it. You know what I'm saying? Cause like,
so that's what people get confused. They go on two different opposite spectrums, right? Like if I do this, I'm successful, or I'm not going to do nothing because I'm happy here where it's at, right? That's why I put stay humble, stay hungry, stay frosty, right? Stay hungry, because even though I want to be humble and I want to be happy where I'm at, I'm hungry to do the best that I can possibly do, right? So like I still have specific goals that I'm trying to reach that I can quantifiably say. I still like having nice things. I still enjoy taking my family out on vacation. I want to give my grandkids like something. So I'm not against money or resources, right? I'm 100% for it. But if I say this is what, once I get this is successful, right? I miss the point of what it's like just to live and be alive and like with your family and your kids and all the other stuff. So, because if not, we all fall in the same place. Even in active duty, like I see guys that are like, oh, I'm going to get this next position for CSM of the universe.
Dude, that was, I did that. I did that for sure, man.
The next promotion, the next this is the next this. It's no more different than chasing, I got this much money in my bank account, or I got a car, or I got whatever. It's the exact same hole that you're filling, and you're not being intentional living in the position that you have and being grateful to be a assistant team sergeant or a team sergeant or an instructor or a sergeant major or a company, wherever you're at, because you're always chasing the next position or the next whatever. And you're like, and you're not being intentional to where you're at, right? And you're just like, oh, but if I get this next position, then I'll be happy. If I get this next position, I'll be, and you're competing against all these other people, and you're just like, oh, just live in the position that you're at now, be the best that you're at right now. Those other positions will come, or they won't, but you're the best that you can be at this position here, you know? So yeah, so we're humans. We chase the same shit. So it's just, you know what I mean? We just fill it with something different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So well said, man. I love it, Terry. All right, Terry, where can our listeners connect with you, check out your coaching and everything that you got going on?
So right now, I'm pretty much just on Instagram. It is terry.m.wilson.jr. So you can find me there, fill out an application if you like what you see or whatever, or hit me up on the DMs and move forward with the conversation from there.
All right. We'll make sure we drop that in the show notes. Awesome. Well, Terry, thank you so much for being so authentic and sharing all that you shared with me and our listeners today. And it's been a joy, man.
All right, Devin. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. For our listeners, until next time, we'll see you.